Joduri Samjamadandani. Namashretram Manuapi Sachiputram Atrasvarupam Rupam Tasya Grajam Urupurim Mafirim Gosvaracham. Narakundam Girivaram Mahorarika Madhavasam Prapto Yasya Patiti Kripaya Śrī Gurum Tamnatosmi. Hariguro Gyanadharina Bandho Svaranandai Karunakai Kisindhu. Vrindavana Sinahita Avatar Prasida Radhan Pranaya Prashad. Edina Bandhu Karunakai Kisindhu. Guru Prasade Mahimanda Mudhe. Lakshaparari Bahupapa Gande Parapadme Subhantista Krishna. Jaya Śrī Kṛṣṇa Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Śrī Advaita Gadadhara Śrīvāsari Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So can you pull up this verse? Ishvare Taradineshu. Ishvare Taradineshu. Ishvare Taradineshu. Name Dveshtosti Napri. Mali Dvishe. Srimad Bhagavatam 248:6. So we'll begin with the first verse before that. This comes from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th Canto, Chapter 2, Text 45. Śrī Havir uvāca sarva-bhūteṣu yad paśyed bhagavad-bhāvam ātmanaḥ bhūtāni bhagavaty ātmany esha bhagavatottamaḥ. Śrī Havir said, the most advanced devotee sees within everything the soul of all souls, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Śrī Kṛṣṇa. Consequently, he sees everything in relationship to the Supreme Lord and understands that everything that exists is eternally situated within the Lord. Ishvare taradineshu balisheshu dvisatsusha prema maitri kripopeksha yakaroti samadhyamaha. An intermediate devotee or second-class devotee called Madhyama Adhikari offers his love to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is a sincere friend to all devotees of the Lord, shows mercy to ignorant people who are innocent, and disregards those who are envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Acharyam eva harer pujam ya sharadayate tat natat bhaktesu chaneshu sabhakta prakritasmritaha. A devotee who faithfully engages in the worship of the deity in the temple, but does not behave properly toward other devotees or people in general, is called a prakrita bhakta. A materialistic devotee is considered to be in the lowest position. So Chitimohan Prabhu has requested that I begin to speak about Vaisnava etiquette. So before we begin going through the Vaisnava etiquette manual, which I may or may not go through systematically, because I feel all of you can read that and discuss it amongst yourself, I wanted more discuss the foundational principles and the consciousness behind Vaishnava etiquette rather than the external rules and regulations. Because before we engage in any activity, our consciousness is what determines the activity that we'll engage in. So this is explained by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, in which he explains the transmigration of the soul. Shariram yadavapnoti yachchapi ukrama ishvara grihet vaitani samyanti vayorgandani vashayat. That at the time of death, whatever the consciousness of the living entity is, they develop a body that matches that disposition of consciousness. So in the same way, the activities that we engage in prior to us engaging in them is highly based on the consciousness which we've cultivated. And consciousness is cultivated through the process of hearing. Shrinvatam swakata Krishna, punya shravana kirtana, hridantyasto hi badrani, vidu noti saritsatam. And the Bhagavad Gita explains that if one contemplates materialistic values, if one contemplates materialistic principles, then what will happen is ichadvesha samutena davant mohena bharata sarva-bhūtāni samoham sagarayanti parantapa, that we become cast into a spell of distinguishing between the right and wrong of this world, rather than being situated in a transcendental consciousness of only seeing the will of Krishna. So a pure devotee will do anything moral or immoral for the service of the Lord, because the devotee understands that that's the highest level of morality. So there's this verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita which explains that the activities of Vaishnava are very difficult to understand. And that's because that a Vaishnava is situated in a consciousness of service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that mood of service is so fixed and so unrelenting that to the morality of this world, the person could appear to be cold, the person could appear to be heartless, the person could appear to be callous to the circumstances of this world. But actually, this is a material misconception. And this material misconception arises due to being overly enamored by the perceptions of morality and immorality. So we see today that there's a lot of talk about, I was just reading about this yesterday. It's called cancel culture, which is basically that when something which doesn't align with the agreed upon morality of today's society enters into the scope of modern society's purview, then that person who carries a different opinion, who engages in activity which is considered to be abominable within the eyes of modern society, that person is shunned from society. So this is the effect of materialistic consciousness. And the thing is that that which people considered to be moral or immoral 50 years ago is completely different from what it is considered moral and immoral today. And what will be considered moral and immoral in the next 50 years will be completely different from what we consider moral and immoral today. So Vaishnava etiquette is an etiquette which is carried throughout time and space, and it is the sadachar, the behavior of one who's endeavoring to engage in a relationship with Krishna. And there's various degrees of realization according to how one's faith has developed. So this last verse which we quoted, Acharyam evahare pujam yat shradadeyate natat bhakte suchane shu sabbhakta prakritis smrtaha. A devotee who faithfully engages in the worship of the deity in the temple but does not behave properly toward other devotees or people in general is called the prakrita bhakta. A materialistic devotee is considered to be in the lowest position. So someone who's just entering into the threshold of devotional service is in a very precarious circumstance, because their faith is more or less based on what is known as lokika shraddha. Lokika shraddha means that within their perception of what they consider to be good and bad within their conditioned state of consciousness, Krishna consciousness somehow seems to be a good idea. And this idea of Krishna consciousness being a good idea has come from an accumulation of what's known as Bhakti and Mukhi Sukriti, that one has been sufficiently exposed to Harinam Sankirtan, one has been sufficiently exposed to prasadam, and most importantly, one has received the mercy of a sadhu, or has somehow or other engaged in the service of a sadhu. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that before Shraddha, faith, is born, is manifested within the heart of the living entity, one has either received sadhu kripa or it has performed sadhu seva unknowingly. So when that faith hits the threshold of enters the threshold of the living entity's conscious contemplations, then somehow bhakti seems like a good idea. Although the living entity is more or less overcome by their own perceptions of good and bad within this world, somehow they have some type of faith within devotion. But they are not able to see who is advanced. They are not able to understand the activities of a Madhyama Adhikari. And because of this, they're subject to committing offenses. So Vaishnava etiquette is extremely important for all devotees, whereas a Uttama Adhikari, a devotee who's the most advanced, performs Vaishnava etiquette out of natural habit, and a Madhyama Adhikari, depending on whether they've been elevated or have come down from an Uttama Adhikari stage, performs engages in Vaishnava etiquette according to experience. If they're coming from the Uttama Adhikari stage, it's a natural disposition. If they're coming from the Kanishta Adhikari stage, a neophyte stage, then they're performing Vaishnava etiquette due to a lot of experience in the association of devotees. But a Prakrita Bhakta, one who's just entering into the threshold of devotional service, whose faith is just beginning to develop, they're in a very precarious condition, because in their condition, they're not able to appreciate the activities of advanced Vaishnavas, and they will impose their conceptions of morality and immorality onto those Vaishnavas in ātmany manyate jagat. Those Vaishnavas who are extremely advanced will act as a mirror for the impurities within their own heart, and not knowing that the fault that they're finding in the Vaishnava is actually their own fault, they can commit offenses. So this is why the neophyte devotee is recommended to worship the deity in the temple, and is recommended to engage in a very regulated practice of devotional service, because by being engaged in the regulated practice of Vaidhi Bhakti, then one's life will be dictated by the rules and regulations of Shastra. And when that lifestyle is accepted and that lifestyle is performed with sincerity, then naturally the only way one can learn the principles of the Pancharatrika Vidhi, the process of Vaidhi Bhakti, regulated devotional service, the only way that one can learn that is in the association of sadhus. And in that association of sadhus, what will take place is that one will worship the deity, one will chant the holy names, and one will also begin to hear the message of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And from doing that, the heart becomes softened. Shrinvatam swakata Krishna punya shravana kirtana. Hridantyasto hi badrani vidu noti suritsatam. The heart becomes cleansed. And with that cleansing of the heart, the Prakrita Bhakta gradually begins to develop discrimination. And what is that discrimination? Tat shradadana munayo yana vairaga yuktayaha paśyed ātmany chātmanam bhakti śrutya grihitaya. Can you pull up this verse, everyone? Tat shradadana munayo yana vairaga yuktayaha paśyed ātmany chātmanam. It's in the second chapter of the first canto, and I think it's verse number, like verse number 10. No. Oh, Verse number 12. So tatshadadana munayo jnana-vairagya yuktaya paśyantyātmani chātmanam bhaktya shruta grihitaya. So the seriously inquisitive student or sage, well equipped with knowledge and detachment, realizes that absolute truth by rendering devotional service in terms of what he has heard from the Vedanta Shruti. So this means that submitting oneself to the process of Vaidhi Bhakti, the rules and regulations of devotion, naturally one will worship the deity, which will purify the heart. And that worship of the deity and the rules and regulations of devotional service will be learned within the association of devotees. And when one learns that process of devotional service in the association of devotees, naturally, one will hear the message of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And one may even begin to read the Srimad Bhagavatam. And by reading the message of the Srimad Bhagavatam, one's Shraddha, which was previously existing on the stage of Lokika Shraddha, it's Shraddha which is based on the idea that this seems like a good thing within the context of what I consider to be good and bad. Traditional faith is what it's generally translated as, or conventional faith. But then, as one progresses after hearing the message of the Srimad Bhagavatam sufficiently, that Lokika Shraddha begins to evolve into Shastriya Shraddha. And that's what this verse is speaking about. That after sufficiently hearing the message of the Srimad Bhagavatam for a long period of time, one's conception of good and bad, moral and immorality will be completely based on and guided by the principles of the Shastra. And one will look upon this world and the conceptions of good and bad within this world as simply being the combinations of the modes of the material nature. Purusha prakritisto hi bhankte prakritir jan gunan karanam gunasango syat sarasadyoni janmasu. They'll see that people's conception of good and bad is just being dictated by the material energy, and actually they have no idea what good and bad is. So this is why it's often said that an ordinary man sees through his eyes. A king sees through his ears. Ordinary man sees through his eyes and he makes judgments according to what he sees. A king makes judgment according to what he hears from his ministers and the spies that he has within his regime. Whereas a sadhu, someone who has developed Shastriya Shraddha, they see through Jnana Chakshusha. So in the Bhagavad Gita, there's a verse that says, Ukramatam stitam vapi vimuda nanupashati paśyed ātmany. Let's see. Ukramatam stitam vapi gunanam. I'm forgetting the verse. I'm just reciting it all day yesterday. 1 second. Ukramatam stitam vapi bunjanam bhagunam bitam vimuda nanupashyanti pyasyanti gana chakshusha. Yeah, that seems right. Let's look it up anyways. Yeah. Ukramatam stitam vapi bunjanam bhagunam bitam vimuda nanupashyanti paśyanti gana chakshusha. The foolish cannot understand how a living entity can quit his body, nor can they understand what sort of body he enjoys under the spell of the modes of material nature. The one whose eyes are trained in knowledge can see all of this. And it goes on to say, Yantato yoginaschainam paśyantyātmani vāshvitam yantanto pi kritātmano nainam paśyanta cetasa. The endeavoring transcendentalists who are situated in self-realization can see all this clearly. But those whose minds are not developed and who are not situated in self-realization cannot see what is taking place, though they may try. So someone who's yantatopi kritātmano, one who's not endeavoring for self-realization, they're not able to distinguish between what is good and bad for them, actually, because everything which they'll consider to be good and bad will be influenced by the desires of their body. Dayato vishayam pumsam kamat tesu vijayate. Sangat sanjayate kaman kamat tesu vijayate. Their conceptions of good and bad will be completely based on what is satisfying to their mind and senses. How does this facilitate my exploitation of the world? But a sadhu being fixed in the faith that he's a servant of Krishna, and compounding and cultivating that faith through the message of Shastra, their perception of good and bad is no longer based on Lokika Shraddha, but is based on Shastriya Shraddha. And what allows this Lokika Shraddha to evolve into Shastriya Shraddha is that the Prakrita Bhakta has to cultivate a humble attitude while in the association of devotees. And this is the foundation of Vaisnava etiquette. Vaisnava etiquette is the vehicle by which a neophyte is able to advance to higher stages of devotion by learning how to associate properly with the devotees. This is explained by Srila Rupa Goswami in his Upadeshamrita, or Nectar of Instruction, in verse number 5. He says, Krishneti yasya giditam manasadriyetat dikshyanti chet prantabis bhajatam in isham Shushushaya bhajam yana anya nindanti sunyam hridi ipsita sangalabhya. That one should mentally honor the devotee who chants the holy name of Krishna. One should offer humble obeisances to the devotee who has undergone spiritual initiation and is engaged in worshiping the deity. And one should associate with and faithfully serve that pure devotee who has advanced in undeviated devotional service and whose heart is completely devoid of the propensity to criticize others. So when one learns the art of how to associate with devotees according to their qualification, when one learns the art of showing respect to all living entities in all circumstances, then this is the art of Vaishnava etiquette. In all the rules and regulations that we find within the Shastra for how to approach the deity, for how to interact with Vaishnavas, it's important for us to understand that all of these are only there to help us facilitate our remembrance of Krishna. Smartatam vishayam, smartatam smitayam Vishnu. Sorry, I'm forgetting the verse, but the whole principle of what's that? Kontakarnava?
Smartavya satatam Vishnu vismartavyo na chatuche sarve vidhi nishedasya
Smartavya satatam Vishnu vismartavyo na jatushit. Sarva-vidhi nasetasur etayor eva kinkara. That all the rules and regulations in the Shastra, they're only functioning for one purpose, to help us always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. What facilitates our remembrance of Krishna is Shushu Shoshadadanasya Vasudeva Kataruchi. Syanmahat Sevaya Vipra Punya Tirthani Sevana. That our service to the Vaishnavas attracts their blessings, and those blessings help purify the mind. When the mind becomes purified, it can easily reflect on Vasudeva Kata, the message of the Shastra. And when the mind is able to reflect on the message of the Shastra, then the natural byproduct is that one always feels joyful, remembering the Lord. So the whole point of Vaishnava etiquette, the whole point of the rules and regulations is simply there to give pleasure to Krishna. Because we'll see in ordinary society, there's people that have very good etiquettes, they have very good culture. But if that culture is not connected to Krishna, then dharmasya hipavargasya nartho nrityo pakalpate. Dharmasya namikantasya. Sorry. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Dharma svanasitam pumsam bhikshvakshena katasuyaha. Napadayat yatiratim shrama eva hi kevalam. Even if one performs all the etiquettes of society very nicely, But if those etiquettes aren't functioning for the purpose of awakening an attraction for the message of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then they're simply considered to be useless labor. So we should always cultivate the principles of Vaishya etiquette for the purpose of developing love for Krishna. Otherwise, if one's just simply cultivating good behavior, but simultaneously is avoiding the process of sadhana bhakti, then shrama eva hi kevalam. One has to engage in sadhana bhakti and simultaneously follow Vaishnava etiquettes. This is mentioned by Srila Haridas Thakur or Srila Sanatana Goswami in relationship to Haridas Thakur, where he says, Namara Prachar Sada Anyways, I'll just repeat the English. What he says is that you, my dear Haridas Thakur, you follow the rules and regulations of Shastra, and you simultaneously preach. Namara Prachar Kari Duikar Tumi Sarva Guru Tumi Jagatera Arya. That because you preach and you simultaneously have good behavior, means proper sadhana and proper Vaishnava relations, and you simultaneously share the message of Krishna with everyone, you are considered to be the guru of the entire universe. So two things have to go on. One has to extend themselves for the mission and simultaneously have proper sadhana and proper Vaishnava dealings. And this will qualify one to become empowered to share Krishna consciousness around the world. So that's my thoughts on this first verse. What we'll do is we'll go through all of these particular verses in the next few weeks regarding Vaishnava etiquette. And in the meantime, on a daily basis, or however Cultural is kind of planning it, you can read from this Vaishnava etiquette manual altogether. So does anyone have any questions?
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much for laying the foundation.
I just remember the verse, Achar Prachar, Namirkari Durikar, Tumi Sarva Guru Tumi Jagatera Arya. This is the verse. Okay, we can have some discussion, right, Cultural?
Yes, the screen is tilted. Yeah, now it's good. Thank you. So thank you, Prabhu, for the nice foundation for Vaishnava etiquettes, how it is important to follow along with sadhana bhakti, and how it helps us from traditional faith, maturing from conventional faith to the Shastra Shraddha. So that is what I understood, that is the importance of Vaishnava etiquettes. So also it helps us to not commit offenses to Madhyamadhikaris and Uttamadhikaris, because I might see my own faults in their behavior. So, yeah, thank you very much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Cultural, are you not at the BYS right now?
I am at BYS. I just logged in to add and chat messages if I have to.
I see. Okay. Anything else?
Hare Krishna, can I ask a question slightly unrelated to the topic today?
Okay.
Yes, so I was hearing Ran Maharaj lecture yesterday, and he was mentioning like some devotee asked, like we are practicing so much for so many years, but it seems like we are still in the same place, and how can we make progress? And Maharaj spoke about that that story narrated by Sri Prabhupada, that how there was a marriage procession that they were planning to reach somewhere by dawn through the river, and
Who I can't hear you very well.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Better, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Hare Krishna. Yeah, so basically, Radha Maharaj was asked by some devotee that we have been practicing for so many years, but it seems like we are still in the same place. And Radhanath Maharaj was talking about that there's a story told by Shri Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur that there was a marriage procession. They had to reach before dawn some village, and what happened was the captain of the boat, he rowed very put a lot of effort through the night, but when the dawn came, they came to know that the anchor was not lifted, so they were at the same place. So that kind of scares me, how can I make sure that I'm progressing in bhakti, that I don't have any anchors put in which are stopping my progress.
Well, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that one should analyze their own heart. Simultaneously, you can take guidance from seniors who've kind of evaluated your progress. And many times seniors may see things within us that need to be corrected, but they may not tell us because they may feel we're not ready to hear it. Or we're so obstinate that even if there is something that needs to be adjusted, even if they were to tell us, we probably wouldn't follow it. So it's good to be open with our superiors and simultaneously analyze our own hearts to see what is it that we're holding back from Krishna. And because the more we try to hold back from Krishna, the more Krishna consciousness is going to be a challenge for us. But the more we just try to give ourselves to Krishna, sarva dharmam parikyaja mamekam saranam braja aham tvam sarva papebhyo moksha yashyami masajaha. Some people may prefer to, take a very, very slow and gradual path and, not try to risk so much, but no risk, no gain, and more risk, more gain. So we should really want to give ourselves completely to Krishna, and we should do this under the guidance of superior Vaishnavas who have evaluated our progress, who know our shortcomings, and are ready to offer us guidance on how we can make progress in the path of bhakti. They're very concerned about that, but maybe due to our lack of communicating with them or opening up to them, they may not be sharing what we need to hear. So we need to make ourselves open to being corrected and make ourselves open to being vulnerable in the midst of those Vaishnavas who have our best interest at heart. And not try to protect our false ego so much.
Okay, bro, makes sense. I took away two main points. One is analyzing own heart, and another was just being open to superiors, being vulnerable and accepting what they guide.
Correct.
Thank you, bro.
Prabhu, I have a small question, if you permit.
Is that Shubham?
Yes, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Oh, good. You always ask good questions.
Prabhuji, somebody who's at Kanish Adhikari stage,
Uh,
how can they have discrimination on who is a Madhyam Adhikari and who is a Uttam Adhikari if they don't have good Shastra backing?
they actually can't discriminate. That's why they're in a precarious situation. So that's why Vaishnava etiquette exists, because, well, I mean, it exists for many reasons, but this is one reason why it exists, particularly for a Kanishta. We're kind of talking about Kanishta. Next time we'll speak about Madhyamas, and then the last week we'll speak about Vaishnava etiquette amongst an Uttama. So for Kanishta, it exists in order to protect them from committing offenses. Because like that verse is saying, where's my iPad? I'll pull it back up. Like that verse is saying, Archaryam eva harir pujam ya shradayate natat bhakte suchanesu sabhakta prakritir smritaha. That they're faithfully engaged pujam ya shradayate, that they have faith in the process of worshiping the Lord, puja. So because they have faith in that, then they're more or less willing to accept the rules and regulations in relationship to worship the deity in the temple. And within the rules and regulations of worshiping the deity, there's simultaneously rules and regulations which govern how one should behave in the midst of devotees. So they accept those rules and regulations on the basis of their faith in the deity, but not understanding why it's important in relationship to them receiving grace from the Vaishnavas. Because actually, Vaishnava etiquette is there in order for knowledge to descend, in order to become receptive. Evam parampara praptam imam raja suryovatu sakalena samahanta yoga nashta parantapa. That knowledge is supposed to descend, but unless one is an open vessel, an open receptacle for receiving, then nothing can go in. So Vaishnava etiquette is really meant to function for those who are junior Vaishnavas to receive the blessings of superior Vaishnavas. But when one is still a Kanishta, then they don't have faith as to why they need to respect the Vaishnavas. They don't see how grace descends from the Vaishnavas. They don't understand how Vaishnavas are the distributors of Krishna's mercy, how they've been employed by the Lord as agents of Krishna's divine mercy to show compassion to the living entities. So they don't understand that. They can't see that. But they have faith in the deity, and because they have faith in the deity, they're willing to accept rules and regulations. And within those rules and regulations is Vaishnava etiquette. And then when they start to follow that Vaishnava etiquette while simultaneously hearing the message of the Srimad Bhagavatam, they develop an awareness that actually this process is descending by grace. And then they can become receptive to it. So they're practicing Vaishnava etiquette according to their faith in the deity, but not their faith in the Vaishnavas. Until their faith in the Vaishnavas develops, then they're still existing in a lower stage of devotion. But as one makes advancement, their faith evolves from not only just having faith in the deity, but developing a broad vision, as Rupa Goswami explains in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, that Krishna isn't alone, that he has many associates, he has many paraphernalias, and so one develops respect not only for the deity, but one develops respect for anything in relationship to Krishna.
Right, Prabhu. Thank you so much. So, Prabhuji, then like the instruction in Upadeshamrit, like in OF5, the one that you quoted, it's not applicable to Kanishta Adhikari, like as in, because
no, it's applicable to Kanishta Adhikari, but it's specifically giving gradations as to how one should relate with each type of Vaishnava. So it's explaining to all devotees that you relate with this particular Vaishnava like this, you relate with this particular Vaishnava like this, and you relate with this Vaishnava like this, because respect has gradations according to the qualification of a person. Different degrees of respect should be shown.
Okay, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Anything else?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam. I had one question, Prabhu. So we see in the case of Ajamil that he does not perform any Vaishnava aparadhas or any offenses, and it is said that that was one of the reasons he was able to attain the mercy of the Lord at the time of his death. We also see another situation where Chitraketu Maharaj, he does not intend to offend Lord Shiva, who's the topmost Vaishnava, but Mother Parvati takes his smile as an offense and he gets cursed. So these are very divergent situations. So can you shed some more light on what exactly an offense is? And even if we do not intend to offend anyone, if someone considers it an offense, still, why is it that we get the effects of that activity?
Yeah, we see that although Chitraketu committed an offense, it wasn't Lord Shiva kind of corrected Parvati and said that there's no reason to be offended in this circumstance. So you see that his devotion wasn't lost despite the fact he took birth as Vritrasura. And you see this in the prayers of Vritrasura, how pure they are. And actually, that so-called fall down and the prayers that he ended up offering was a means of glorifying Chitraketu later on. So you see that his devotion was maintained despite the fact he committed an offense. So we can understand from that his offense wasn't so serious. In the case of Ajamil, it's explained that although he didn't commit any offenses, when he was put into a situation which was precarious, he didn't take shelter of bhakti. He took shelter of jnana. This is explained by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his commentaries, that when Ajamil saw the Sudra and Sudrani embracing each other, instead of taking shelter of the Lord, he took shelter of the process of jnana. And so that was ultimately what caused his fall down, is that he wasn't taking shelter of the Lord in such a circumstance. Whereas you see in the case of Ramachandra Kavi, in the case of Ramachandra Puri, he was someone that was a devotee, a disciple of Madhavendra Puri, but he offended Madhavendra Puri, and because of that, he lost his propensity for engaging in devotional service, and he developed the propensity for criticizing Vaishnavas. So in the case of Maharaj Chitraketu, you can see that his devotion was maintained, despite the fact that he may have been punished, he may have had some type of punishment. That punishment wasn't so severe because his ability to remember the Lord wasn't lost. So that's really the pernicious effects of a Vaishnava aparad, is that a devotee is in such consciousness that Narayana Prayana Sarve Nakutastadya Vidyate Swarga Pavarga Narkesu Apitulyartha Darshanam, that a Vaishnava doesn't care whether he's in hell and heaven as long as he can engage in the remembrance of Krishna. So although Chitraketu fell down, his ability to remember Krishna wasn't lost. Ramachandra Kaviraj, however, not Ramachandra Kaviraj, Ramachandra Puri, because he committed an offense to Madhavendra Puri, we see through his behavior that he simply engaged in the criticism of Vaishnavas. So that means he lost his ability to remember Krishna. If one's engaging in the criticism of Vaishnavas, it means that they're not taking shelter of the holy name. Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains this in his Harinam Chintamani. So if one is engaging in Vaishnava Parad, what's the word that I'm looking for? Consistently is a more acute word that I want to use, but I can't remember it. They're constantly engaging in Vaishnava Parad, then it could be understood that they're not taking shelter of the holy name, and from not taking shelter of the holy name, they're engaging in Vaishnava Parad. And that ability to take shelter of the holy name is lost if one has committed Vaishnava Parad in the past. So it's a very pernicious cycle. This is why we should be very careful in the association of devotees. This is why we should take Vaishnava etiquettes very seriously, and this will protect us. It's explained in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that the creeper of devotion should be protected very carefully with a fence, and that fence which guards the creeper of devotion is the etiquettes of Vaishnava culture. That protects our devotion, and it also invites grace into our life because we've learned how to associate with advanced devotees in the right way. And by associating with them properly, they feel compassion for us, and that compassion manifests through the instructions and the blessings which they give to us, which help us advance in devotional service.
Perfect, Prabhu. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Anyone else have anything else to say? All right. Suvarna Bindu, would you like to say anything? No? Okay. Suvarna Bindu's here, everyone. Okay. Thank you all very much. Vancha kalpatarumbhisya kripa sindhudevacha patitanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
His Grace Devavrata Prabhu ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki